Don't you dare try buying a business without asking the right questions.
Who?
What?
Who?
What?
Because look, buying the wrong one or overlooking a few characteristics of that business could cost you everything. I am talking hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. So to look out for you, I'm going to show you guys the 5 most important topics and questions to ask before you buy a business. Buffett asked these questions, and even I, when I spent 10 plus years working on Wall Street at the best private equity firms in the entire world, asked myself these questions every single day, and I think you guys should too. So let's lock in, grab your notepad, let's write these questions down so you can learn how to be a smart money investor too. Let's rock. All right, topic number 1, circle of competence. And here's my golden question. Is this business simple to understand? Warren Buffett encourages us to invest in things that we know. And in the beauty of investing, we have autonomy. No one is forcing you to invest in a particular business model, sector, geography, and they are not giving you timing pressures to put your dollars to work. The beauty of being an investor is that you can be patient and wait for the right moment to strike. And I love this. Ted Williams, who was a famous baseball player, he wrote a book called The Science of Hitting. And in it, he had a picture of himself, funny enough, at bat with a strike zone that had about 77 different squares. And he mentioned in this book that if he waited for the pitch that was exactly within his sweet spot, he would bat on average a 400. But if the pitch was far away from that sweet spot, say bottom right, bottom left corner, he would do on average 235. And that just goes to show that someone as legendary as Ted Williams, famous baseball player, understood his circle of competence. He understood his sweet spot. And the cool thing about investing, we can find that sweet spot as well. What work experience do you have? What industry do you know well? What kind of network can you tap into to where you have very smart and knowledgeable people that can help you make an informed decision on a business? Try to define where you have a competitive advantage or you have an edge, and when you found it, strike. Moving on to the next topic. Pricing. Everything is nice at the right price. And my golden question here is the price for this business fair? And can I buy it at a significant enough discount? Okay, look, all businesses are sold at a price. The owner who has been working hard to grow that business has decided that I am willing to sell my company to someone else at the right price. Let's take, for example, let's go on BizBuySell. I love doing the shopping here. On this listing here, you can see that this business, which is a lawn care and landscaping business based in Florida, has an asking price of $700,000. Meaning if I had a check in my hand right now for $700,000 and showed up at that business owner's front door and said, I'm going to buy this, he'll buy it. But the question is it a fair price? And in order to assess the fairness of a price, you have to understand the cash flow of the business. And from on this listing here, we can see that this business is doing around $350,000 of cash flow. Now, what's fair? Would I pay $10 million for this business? Heck no. It only does $350,000 of cash flow a year. Would I pay $20 for this business? No, because they generate too much cash flow. So try to find what that zone of agreement would be on a fair price. And now here's where we do the smart money thinking and second and third level thinking of, can I buy it at a significant enough discount? In private equity, we view prices of businesses as a multiple, meaning you take the price that it is listed or asking, or that you're proposing to offer, say that's $700,000, and you divide that by the annual cash flow for that business. And that will give you a multiple. So for this Florida example, the business is asking $700,000 and it generates $350,000 of cash flow, implying a 2 times multiple. Meaning I am willing to pay 2 times the amount of annual cash flow that this business generates to purchase this company. Now, what the pros like to do is they like to take that multiple and compare it to other deals that have been transacted to see if this is above or below the average of where things should be trading at. And the cool thing is there's so much data out there to understand what were the last few prices that businesses have sold at as it relates to their multiple. And this is what we like to call comparable analysis to see how is it comparing to public companies, how is it comparing to previous transactions to see are we above or below below where things normally transact at. And in today's environment, a solid rule of thumb is that these kind of small businesses, service-based businesses, typically transact at a 3 to 5 times cash flow multiple. So the fact that this one is listed for a 2x multiple means that there's an odds that we can probably get ourselves a nice discount here. But why is price so significant? I'll tell you what, there's danger in overpaying. Because look at this, when you buy a business, you typically, for the full purchase price, say that's $700,000, usually people take out a loan, usually SBA, to cover part of that purchase price. And the higher the price that you're paying, the larger the loan amount you're going to have to take out as well, if you don't have it all in cash. And the larger loan amount means the larger the interest payments. And if a business doesn't have that cash flow to cover the interest payments and reinvest into the business and pay their employees, you're going to be shit out of luck. So always, always, always ask yourself, is this a fair price? And is it at a strong enough discount to where I can afford the interest payments, the growth, the investments, and everything that is costly to running and scaling this business? And my solid rule of thumb is that if any type of service business is trading at 5 times or more, it's a little pricey, a little expensive. And if it's trading at 2 or 3 times and less, then you could get a discount, but it warrants you doing the little extra homework to identify why it is trading at a discount. It might be over-reliance on the owner, meaning he or she drove most of the sales. There could be customer concentration, or worst case scenario, owner just wants to get out quickly, ASAP, because there's no more growth potential in this business. So they're willing to sell it at any price. So those are things to look at. Price gives you so much color into the quality and health of that business. Because I'm telling you now, a business owner of an incredible business is not going to sell at a cheap price. That's a fact. Now, this topic's huge. Management. Look, who's the boss? Who's going to steer the ship? Who is going to handle those tough discussions? And who's going to take this business to the next freaking level? And my golden question here is there a trustworthy and qualified leader to run this business? Or did I buy myself a job? I want you to understand something very, very simple. A successful business is led by someone who has strong integrity, that is ambitious, that has incredible leadership and team skills, and wants to execute and take this business to the next level. They have something called obsession with the business. That's what makes the greats. Apple isn't what it is today because it was a great product. Apple is what it is today because of the genius of Steve Jobs, because of the amazing stewardship of Tim Cook. And look at the other CEOs. CEO of Google, Microsoft, Amazon, heck, Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA. They lead great teams. They set the pace for innovation and execution, and they act with integrity. It's that simple. Look at any incredible business, whether it's a small company that you work at, middle market company, or a large global multi-billion-dollar franchise, they have great leaders. But then also flip the script and understand that we've seen countless time after time and again, poor businesses were ran by poor leaders. The worst thing you can do is buy a business with an unqualified, poor performing, unethical leader within that company. Or even worse, buy a business and have to force yourself to spend 40, 80 hours a week running the day-to-day operations of the business. Because the reason why you clicked on this video is I'm assuming that you want to be a great smart money investor. You don't want to run every single detail of that company, but instead you want to find yourself an incredible leader to handle the day-to-day, and you focus on capital allocation. And also, by the way, thank you for clicking onto this video. If you're new here, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button where we do nothing but talk about smart money moves and help you think like the pros. I'm telling you, it is the best decision you will ever make in your entire life. All right, let's keep rolling. But look, you want to avoid the unambitious, bare minimum, unethical leaders. And ethics is very important as well. One of my favorite tests on ethics for a management team member is the Wall Street Journal test or newspaper test. If what they were doing right now, the action they were taking or the direction they're taking the business, if that were to be published on the front page of the newspaper to where everyone in their family can see, would they be proud of it? That is a performer, that is a leader that is acting out of strong and good integrity because they understand the consequences of their directions, their words, and their actions. So find someone who is accountable, who is ethical, who is ambitious, and is obsessed with watching your business grow. They're hard to find, I'm not gonna lie. I read comments all the time of, how can you find a business and trust someone to run the day-to-day? It's hard, but it's possible. And proven time after time and again. Simply look at Warren Buffett's portfolio. He picked incredible leaders to run his businesses. Is he sitting there focused on selling insurance at Geico? Is he selling Apple devices at the Apple Store? No. He's identified businesses that have clear moats, great products, and incredible leaders. So let's follow that playbook and do the exact same. But worst comes to worst, if you find a great business and you can't do it and you need to step in, make sure that you are that leader that the organization needs. Plain and simple. Now it's time for the numbers. Financials. My golden question, fundamental question here is, does the business have a consistent operating history of generating cash flow? You guys remember that song? Cash rules everything around me. Cream! Dollar dollar bill, y'all. That wasn't just a fire lyric from the 90s by Wu-Tang Clan. That is gospel when it comes to investing. Cash is everything. Cash pays the bills. Cash pays your employees. Cash pays down your debt. And more importantly, cash generates your returns on your investment. Ladies and gentlemen, without cash, the game is over. Understand the stakes here, right? Like if you're looking at a business, you need to simply ask the owner or the banker for the last 5 to 10 years of their P&L and financials. Because if the business does not have a history and a consistent track record of generating cash flow, why the heck will they start doing it after you buy the company? All businesses that are really good have clean and organized records of their operating history and financial performance, meaning they have an understanding of revenue and cost and cash flow for all their years. This is either in their P&L or in their tax returns. They know how to track these things. And your job as an investor is to do the analysis and understand the trends in that revenue, in that cost, and in that margin and cash flow and profitability. Now look, it is very simple. How much are they bringing in? How much does it cost to produce that good or service? That's your margin. And dive deeper and deeper and deeper as you get more information. And if you want to be gung-ho like me, I'm a hardcore private equity investor. I was trained at Blackstone and KKR, so I build models like these where I dive deep into the different segments of revenue and those trends and unit economics, and I dive into what makes up the operational expenses and what is really driving the margin and cash flow yield of a business. Now, you don't need to do all this. This is a little OD. But what you do need to do is you need to understand the story behind the numbers of the cash flow dynamics for this business. Because like I said, cash is king. Or like Wu-Tang Clan said, cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money, dollar dollar bill, y'all. Now this is arguably the most important one. The moat. Business is very fun, but remember, it's a competition.
I don't care how you get there. I don't care what you do to get there. The goal is to win.
A business is competing for a customer's time, attention, and most importantly, their dollars. Because if they're not spending it with you, they're spending it with somebody else. So I always ask this golden question: what is this business's competitive advantage? And on Wall Street, we like to call this the moat. What is a business's competitive moat? Now, this is cool. This is my first time I've been doing this. But let's look up the definition of moat. I kind of took it at face value when my bosses were saying it, and I kind of embedded it in my lingo. But let's try to understand, what does a moat actually mean? It says here on Google, a moat is a deep, wide ditch surrounding a castle, fort, or town, typically filled with water and intended as a defense against attack. So what is this business's moat? What is the deep, wide ditch protecting this business from competitors stealing their customers? So many great companies were here yesterday and gone today simply because they do not have a defensible and clear moat. And this can be a defense against competition, the company right down the block, or the bigger competitor, or sometimes it could be against innovation and technology. Look at Blockbuster, for example. They did not have a strong enough moat against Netflix's online streaming innovation. So when you're looking at a business, you need to ask yourself, zoom out into the details and numbers and understand, what is this business doing? What is the product or service? And is what they are offering defensible, unique, and do they have some type of advantage? And let's take Warren Buffett's portfolio, for example. He is a notorious investor of Coca-Cola. What's their moat? They have an incredible recipe. They have one of the greatest brand equities across any business in the US. And also they have an incredible distribution network that allows for them to get their products all across the world faster, cheaper, and more efficient than any other brand, right? That's a very clear moat. Another example, Apple. Berkshire is a large investor in Apple. There is no arguing. Apple is one of the most recognizable brands in the entire world. That's a moat. Do you know how long it will take and how hard it will be for a new competitor to pop up and build a brand as recognizable as Apple? Very tough to do. Many have tried, many have failed. that's a defensible moat. So find yourself a business with a very clear and outlined competitive advantage. And you're probably asking, like, what are examples of different moats that I could identify or look for in a business? There are a bunch, there are many. Some could be tech, some could be talent, some could be distribution, but here are a few that make sense. IP. Does a business have a technology or process that is protected in how they build or what they build so that no one else can do it? That's a clear moat. Loyalty. Does the business have a deep and generational relationship with their customers to where they have built an incredible brand loyalty and equity, aka Apple? Distribution network. Can they get their products to customers faster, cheaper, more efficient than their competitors? Others could be pricing. Others could be how incredible the founder is, right? Now we're living in a world where there's a lot of founder-led businesses that just have personalities that build that brand equity. So people can't really replicate who the founder is. So those are the type of questions and things you need to ask is, what is this business doing? What do they have in their process that has built a wide, deep ditch that is protecting us against our competitors? And I think if you take the time to tap into intellectual curiosity and deeply, deeply, deeply think about those 5 questions, you will think more like a professional, smart investor. The Buffetts, the Howard Marks, the Steve Schwarzmans, the Kinney Finances of the world, you'll start thinking like us. And what's cool is many of these tenets came from this book that I read called The Warren Buffett Way, which is from an author that summarized the last 50 plus years of Warren Buffett's annual letters. And if you don't know about those, that's essentially the Bible for investing for us Wall Street folks. Every year we read them and understand how Buffett is thinking about the markets and investing. But there's so much more to learn about finance and investing and buying businesses. And I personally think that outside of YouTube, you can learn all this stuff by reading. This next video outlines, out of the hundreds of books that I have personally read, the 5 that have personally impacted how I think psychologically as an investor. One of them being the Warren Buffett Way. So check out the other 4. So I'll catch you guys there. And if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a huge favor and smash that like button. It means the world to me as well as the rest of the community. And I'll catch you guys making smarter money moves on the next one. Peace.